This is the Houston Unlimited Hydroplane World Championship, brought to you by Ford and your local Ford dealer.
From the Lone Star State of Texas, it is time for the 10th and final race of the 1984 Unlimited Hydroplane racing season, that being the Houston World Championships. And what a gorgeous setting. We're some 20 miles south of downtown Houston, near NASA, of course, the Lyndon Johnson Space Center, and we are on Clear Lake here in the southern part of this state of Texas. Hello, everybody. I'm Don Poyer again with Jim Hendrick to bring you today's race. And already we have a major development, just like last week at Lake of the Ozarks. The Squire Shop has broken another propeller. The blade coming off, damaging the rudder. And Jim Hendrick is down there with the driver, Mickey Riemann, for an update. Jim?
What was the first thing you noticed that was wrong? What did you feel?
Yeah, we've had a lot of propeller breakage this year. Everyone has. And it generally comes out with a big boom, a heavy vibration or kind of a boom explosion type. This time it was the boom and explosion type, and I thought we had just broken another propeller. I didn't know until I lifted it on the crane that we actually broke a shaft. The propeller came off and tangled up with the steering linkage in the back. I thought the rudder was gone because I lost all steering.
You lost the rudder arm.
The rudder's still on, but it broke the arm off, the mechanism for it. So I really don't know as much as you guys do now. I just had one chance to peek at it, except for the big boom.
Okay, Don?
On a positive note, the Texmo qualified. That is the outboard-driven tunnel hull owned by Bob Hall out of Texas and driven by Buck Thornton. They qualified for the first time in 1984, today at a speed of better than 108 miles per hour.
I'm real happy for the owner, I'm real happy for Mercury, and real happy for all the people that worked so hard to get us to where we are now.
And finally, it wouldn't be appropriate unless we talked to the defending champion, that being the Miss Renault, owned by Jerry Shaineth, driven by Milner Irvin. And Jim is with them right now. Jim?
I guess the big question is, Don, can they repeat? How about it, Jerry?
I'll tell you, the Renault is running great. The water in Houston's the best it's ever been, but you got to ask Milner.
Milner?
Jim, it'll be a tough act to follow after last year, but we are running a lot better than we were last year. We think we got a good chance.
A lot of competition here today. Now let's check the rundown for Heat 1A. Heat 1A will see Jerry Hopp driving the U-20 Rampage 3. He qualified at 108.709. Joe Ritchie, Spirit of Detroit, will be driven by Todd Yarling. They checked in at 115.340. The Miss Renault, defending champion, driven by Milner Irvin at 115.771. The Houston Gold Cup 85 U80 with Ron Armstrong at the wheel at 120.514. Also qualifying for Heat 1A, the Miss Budweiser with Jim Kropfeld, national champion of 1984. He checked in at 121.245. And Miss Tosti Asti with Steve Reynolds rounds out the field at 1A at 126.564. And that's the rundown of Heat 1A, and now for all the action in Heat 1B. How about it, Don?
All right, Jim, Heat 1B looks pretty good. We've got a couple of turbines as well as the established Merlin engines. Let's take a look. First of all, the Light All-Star, the host boat for this race with Tom DeEath aboard, qualifying at 107.6 miles per hour. Then comes the Texmo, qualifying for the first time in 1984. Buck Thornton, the driver, at 108.303. American Speedy Printing, the U6 with Ron Snyder at 116.339 miles per hour. The U8, the Miss Executone Telephones out of Seattle, George Johnson, the driver, 117 miles per hour. The U1, the Atlas Van Lines with Chip Hanauer aboard. Of course, the turbine boat qualifying at a conservative 127 miles per hour. And the U2, the Squire Shop with Mickey Riemann aboard with that prop damage. Hopefully they'll be ready in time for Heat 1B. They qualified at 128.1. This is the final race day of 1984, and it should be one of the best and most exciting. The stage is set for 1A and 1B. We'll have those for you right after this timeout. Don Poyer along with Jim Hendrick in Houston. Here's the rundown for Heat 1A, including two of the hot boats, the Tosti Asti and the Budweiser for Heat 1A. And while we're here, let's take a close-up look at the drivers. Jerry Hopp out of the Seattle area driving the Rampage 3. Todd Yarling out of Madison, Indiana, and the driver of the Joe Ritchie Spirit of Detroit. The defending champion down here in Houston, E. Milner Irvin, and the Miss Renault, owned by Jerry Shaineth. Ron Armstrong, the Bob Patterson Special, it has lately just been named the Houston Gold Cup 85.
Jim Kropfeld, the national champion, and the national championship boat, the Budweiser. And Steve Reynolds with a Miss Tosti Asti, hoping to have a much better day than in the past couple of races. All 6 boats are now running for Heat 1A here in Clear Lake near Houston, Texas. You see the Tosti Asti on the left, the Joe Ritchie Spirit of Detroit on the inside, and they look very early. Let's wait and see if they beat the gun. They're all right. They just made it. The Tosti Asti with Steve Reynolds with a bit of a lead as they go in, but look at lane number 2. That's the Budweiser with Jim Kropfeld. Great acceleration into this very, very wide first turn. It's almost like a straightaway, as a matter of fact. And they'll be going down the back chute into a very, very tight second turn. The Budweiser in first place in lane number 1 back a ways is the Miss Renault with Milner Irvin. The Budweiser, though, in first place. But look at Steve Reynolds and the Tosti Asti. He had a great start, as we saw. He was very early, but he made it in time. And right now, he's got the lead over the Budweiser going down the main straightaway. But wait a minute, he's slowing down. Here comes the Bud back into the lead. More frustration for the Tosti Asti crew and driver Steve Reynolds. The boat has been running pretty well here in Houston. They've been dealing with the salt water again, and oh my goodness, more frustration. Let's hope their day is not over. The Budweiser, the national champion for 1984, with Jim Kropfeld in first place, coming down the main straightaway after that very tight turn of probably around 600 feet in diameter. That is the limit, the minimum limit for unlimited hydroplane courses. Speed for the Budweiser in lap number 1, as you see the Tosti trying to get started, 123.0 miles per hour. The Miss Renault moving up on the inside, however. Milner Irvin giving chase to the Budweiser. Third place, the Houston Gold Cup 1985. Ron Armstrong, the driver of that boat. As you see the Renault move up inside against the Bud. Kropfeld in the Bud against Milner Irvin and the Renault, and the Renault has moved out in first coming out of that wide turn. Going down the main straightaway, the back chute rather. In first place now is the Miss Renault with a Budweiser in second place. Joe Ritchie, Spirit of Detroit, in fourth place with Todd Yarling out of Madison, Indiana. Coming in now, that very tight turn, the Budweiser has regained the lead. Going into, as I said, very tight, very tough turn for a heavy boat like the Bud, but they've got the power to make up for it. The Renault holding tough on the inside, a very light boat that has a turbocharged Allison engine. There it is again now, as you see the Budweiser again falling back against the Miss Renault as they complete lap number 2. The Renault speed 119 miles per hour, the Budweiser 115, but again the Bud on those long straightaways able to accelerate and catch up with Milner Irvin and the Miss Renault. The Renault has to be favored in the turns, the Bud of course in the straightaways. The Rampage 3 in 5th place, that's Jerry Hopp out of the Northwest. The Budweiser again back into the lead, something we've seen now in this heat. He leads after the straightaway. The Miss Renault comes out of the turn first. Jim Kropfeld, one of the best in the business. 6 victories already for the Bud in 1984. 10 victories as an unlimited hydroplane driver for Kropfeld. Milner Irvin, he's the defending champion, of course, in the World Championships in Houston here. They go 6 laps, by the way, and since this is the world title, they go 6 rather than the customary 5 laps. The Budweiser speed on lap number 3, 124.8 miles per hour, and he's beginning to extend that lead over the Miss Renault and Milner Irvin. That boat, a lot of problems. They had prop damage, not only in Seattle, but also San Diego. They missed the Ozarks race 1 week ago in order to prepare for the World Championships here in Houston. And they're doing pretty well. They're in second place. The Budweiser again going around that wide first turn and going down the main straightaway. The national champion. This is the last time we'll see this boat race ever. It will be retired after the Houston Championships. There's the Miss Renault in second place. Looks like Milner will settle for second place and pick up 300 points in Heat 1A. Currently in third place is Ron Armstrong in the U80. That's the Houston Gold Cup 85, named to commemorate the race that'll be here next year, and that'll be the granddaddy of them all, the Gold Cup down here in Texas. The Budweiser coming around that very tight second turn as he comes wide, and of course this boat, as I said, will be retired after this race. It has 23 victories all told. If they win today, the World Championship, they'll tie Bill Muncie's last boat, the Blue Blaster, which picked up 24. The Budweiser coming in first place for Heat 1A. 400 points for Jim Kropfeld and the Budweiser. Second place out of Miami, Milner Irvin and the Miss Renault for 300 points. And third place, Ron Armstrong in the Houston Gold Cup 85, the U80. And the results are as follows. The Budweiser winning it. Moving on down the line, more frustration for the Tosti Asti. Failing to get any points, failing to finish. Let's go to Jim Hendrick.
Jim, if you will, please. Over that camera. It's not too shabby getting a leg up here on the World Crown.
Well, that's 400 points towards getting us in the final, which really counts. But of course, you got to do good here too.
What goes through your mind that this is the last race that you'll be running this sweet boat?
Well, I'll tell you the truth, I'll be glad to get a new one. I think with the Griffin engine, the way the guys got it fixed up now with reliability, with that new and lighter Ron Jones hull, the Miss Budweiser, the new one will be just fantastic.
Miss Budweiser, a lot of competition from Miss Renault in that last heat, so let's go over to Don and Milner Irvin.
All right, Jim, let's see if we can talk to Milner for a second. Congratulations, nice showing out there. The boat looks good.
Thank you, Don. It's fun to race, too. Jim's a super driver.
How is it handling out there?
Much better. I think we're handling probably better here. In our last race, San Diego, we got our bugs ironed out. It's definitely handling better than it has ever before.
Now, what about 6 laps?
That's the reason I slowed down. I ran out of fuel. We're really pressed for fuel. We're using methanol, and it just eats it up. And I'm really pushed to run 6 laps.
The drama developing at the Squire shop. Will they be ready for Heat 1B? Jim?
Well, Don, it's going to be very close if they're going to make this Heat 1B right now. You can see the mechanics are feverishly working on the back of that damage that happened in pre-race practice. Whether they'll make 1B, that remains to be seen. Back up to you.
We're in Houston, home of NASA and the astronauts. And Tom Deeth of the Light All-Star, looking much like one, heads out for Heat 1B. We'll be right back. Don Poyer with Jim Hendrick in Houston. Again, the Squire shop, just like last week, racing to repair damage in time for its first race of the day. Let's get a word from owner Bob Stile.
Robert, think you can get it ready in time, or is it ready now?
Don, it's ready, but it's close. We're going to make it. Squire's always in there. We've got a great team here. I'll tell you, they're fighting their way through, but we're going to make it.
Been doing a lot of this the last couple of weeks.
It's close. Boy, I'll tell you, our fuel consumption is going to be very tight out there because we lost our surge tank. So we're going to run directly right into the fuel tank. So we'll be short of fuel possibly. We're going to have to start a little late. But
but you got a rudder in there, a new rudder.
New rudder, all new. It's all new back there. They've several camps have lent their parts here, and we thank them all. They've all done great.
Nice going.
Thank you, Don.
So it appears that all 6 boats will be ready for Heat 1B. And here's the rundown. The Squire shop, Atlas, Executone telephones, and on down the line. Good race coming up. And here's a great sight. The Squire shop being lifted into the water. The Squire crew has done it again. They'll be ready for the race. Let's meet the drivers. First of all, the driver of the host boat, the Light All-Star, that being Tom Deeth out of Detroit, Michigan. Texmo driver Buck Thornton in his first race of 1984, the boat qualifying for the first time. Ron Snyder at American Speedy Printing. It's a miracle that boat is even here. We'll talk about that during the race. George Johnson of the Miss Executone telephones, number 3 in national points this year. Chip Hanauer and the Atlas Van Lines. He won the national championship on this course in 1983. And Mickey Riemann, and as we said, the Squire shop is ready for Heat 1B. The news isn't so good, however, for the Light All-Star. Tom Deeth waving, unable to start the Light, the turbine-powered boat. In the meantime, it'll be a 5-boat race for 1B. Here's the Executone with George Johnson in one of the outside lanes, and the race is on. On the inside is the Squire shop with the Atlas Van Line screaming around the lane. In lane number 2 around that wide turn. Mickey Riemann on the right, Chip Hanauer on the left. This wide turn, in a way, is favoring these turbines because they feel with the light boat and the low center of gravity, they can actually go with the hammer down all the way around that wide turn. There's the battle for 3rd and 4th. American Speedy on the inside, the Executone telephones on the outside. Coming into that tight second turn, you see Chip Hanauer and the Atlas Van Lines in first place with Mickey Riemann holding on, going the short route around the course. And the Atlas has gone dead in the water. Power problems for the Atlas Van Lines. It appears he's out of this race anyway, as the Squire shop, this boat, with Mickey Riemann, moves into first place. What a success story after racing to get the boat ready in time. Jim Harvey, the crew chief, and the rest of the gang working on that boat. Well, they've got a first place boat right now in Heat 1B. The Squire shop, first place. Speed for the Squire, 112.3 miles per hour. In second place, here comes George Johnson in the Executone Telephones in that new Lucero designed and built boat out of Seattle. George in his third year of driving for Executone Telephones. They're in second place. Speed 108 miles per hour. And this boat for the first time is qualified in 1984, the Texmo with Buck Thornton. The tunnel hole design, and as you see, it has problems in the turns. However, Chip Hanauer has even bigger problems with the Atlas van lines, waving that he's all right and he'll wait for a tow. Squire Shop in first place. Executone Telephones here in second. Third place, American Speedy Printing and Ron Snyder. Going into the tight second turn, the Squire Shop with Mickey Riemann qualifying at better than 128 miles per hour. The Executone, they've been experimenting with different power plants, even a turbocharged Merlin engine. That would be something. If they could perfect that system, they would create a great deal of power with these original World War II airplane engines. With the Squire Shop completing lap number 2 with a speed of 115.7 miles per hour. Mickey Riemann in first. Executone Telephones in second. And American Speedy with only one engine to work with today, and that one on loan from the Joe Ritchie Spirit of Detroit camp. Ron Snyder easing his way around the course, hoping to stay alive with only one engine. Of course, normally an engine or a camp has maybe 5 to 6 engines to work with. They have burned up at least 10 on the 1984 circuit. But they're staying alive today thanks to Joe Ritchie and thanks to their crew donating that engine so that American Speedy can stay alive. Here, Buck Thornton and the Texmo, the tunnel hole, and Mickey Riemann enjoying first place in fresh water as he comes around that tight turn again here on Clear Lake in Houston, Texas. The final stop on the 1984 tour. Mickey Riemann on lap number 3. George Johnson in hot pursuit. You can see a bit of the spray from the rooster tail of the Squire. He's got about a rooster tail lead over the Executone Telephone. Squire Shop moving up on, I believe, the Texmo about to lap him as Mickey completes lap number 4, 112.7 miles per hour for Riemann and Company. What a miracle that this boat is even running. They had to make quick repairs here. They had to make quick repairs at Lake of the Ozarks, but they had a similar problem when a blade broke on the propeller, damaging the transom on that boat. The Executone Telephone still in second place, and Ron Snyder taking a lot of the heat off of that engine, that turbocharged Allison. They extended the exhaust pipe so some of the heat wouldn't go directly into Ron's face, but it's still a mighty hot ride when you're riding in one of those conventional boats. Mickey Riemann cranking it to the left for one more time here in Heat 1B as he heads down the main straightaway for the last time. He's in front. He'll pick up 400 points as the winner of Heat 1B, Mickey Riemann and the Squire Shop. Great effort on the part of the Squire Shop's crew. They get 400 points. Executone Telephone second, American Speedy with 225, only 3 boats finishing Heat 1B. Down to Jim in the pits.
Don, I guess the big story of the Squire Shop victory is the crew that worked so hard to put him out there. Let's talk to the crew chief, Jim Harvey. Jim, I heard you say, I've never had a year like this.
It's incredible. It seems like every other race we've had a major problem with the hull as far as propeller breaking and doing extensive damage, which would normally take 2 or 3 weeks to repair, and we end up having to do it in 2 or 3 days, and sometimes 2 or 3 hours. And it's incredible.
Jim Harvey, congratulations to you and your crew. And another boat that hasn't been doing very well lately, but is back in action, is the American Speedy Printing Team. Let's go down to Don Poyer for that story.
Jim, I'm with Ron Snyder, the driver. You only got one engine to work with here, pal, and you're doing a pretty good job, it looks like.
Well, you know, in the last 5 races, it's the first time we finished a complete heat. It feels kind of good.
Consolation race in Seattle.
Yeah, holy mackerel. It feels kind of good, and you know, the crew has been working their tails off on this thing, so one motor, you know, maybe that's been our handicap all year. We had too many. But, you know, we'll be ready for the next heat.
We are in Houston, Texas for the World Championships, and we'll return in a moment. Welcome back to Houston. Jim Henrik has an update down in the pits.
Well, Don, as you can see, they're busy as bees right around the back end of this Atlas van lines, and once again, it's the shaft. It's twisted completely down, like Lake of the Ozarks last week when they were trying to get ready for the final. In that case, they made it. In this case, for Heat 2A, I doubt it.
And Jim, I guess we'll have a 5-boat race for 2A. The Squire, Executone Telephones, American Speedy, the Houston Gold Cup, Rampage 3, and it appears the day is over for Atlas Van Lines. This is extremely unfortunate because the Atlas Van Lines Company announced this weekend they will not return in 1985, ending a 17-year marriage in unlimited hydroplane racing. And Chip, of course, wanted to end with a victory here in Houston. So with a 5-boat field, here we go with Heat 2A, the second flight of heats today. The Executone Telephones, the blue, dark blue, white boat. And all of them are coming in way too early. You can see that they're slowing way down, creeping their way towards the starting line. The Executone on the right of the screen, way out in front, and I believe George Johnson will jump the gun. There's the gun. Yes, the Executone Telephones has jumped the gun. You see the American Speedy Printing with Ron Snyder in lane number 2. And here they come into that wide first turn. On the way inside is the Rampage 3 in lane number 2, the U-80. That's the Houston Gold Cup 85 with Ron Armstrong. Ron Snyder out of Piqua, Ohio in the American Speedy Printing in that classic conventional boat with a slight lead in lane number 2 as they come around and head down the back straightaway here on Clear Lake in Houston, Texas. American Speedy Printing extending that lead. The Executone Telephones is slowing way down. Power problems for George Johnson. The Squire Shop is running all right. Remember, they have only really one fuel tank. They don't have the other fuel tank, which helps them get through the turns. There you see the U-80, the Houston Gold Cup 85. A beautiful shot. And there the leader, American Speedy Printing, coming around and completing lap number 1. Let's get a speed. 112.4 miles per hour for your leader, Ron Snyder and American Speedy. Mickey Riemann, a man who has won virtually half the heats he's been in, is struggling along with that steering problem and maybe a fuel supply problem for the Squire Shop. American Speedy, you might be able to tell when he comes around the turn, those extended exhaust pipes coming out of the turbo section of that Allison engine. They call it the Texas Longhorn, looks a lot like it. Here's the Rampage 3 with Jerry Hopp driving. Let's see, you can see there the extended exhaust. That helps keep some of that heat and the fumes away from Ron Snyder as he drives that conventional boat. A lot of heat comes off that engine, a lot of exhaust, sometimes a lot of oil too. But right now, Ron Snyder is easing along with that one and only engine he has to work with. Second place, Houston Gold Cup 85 with Ron Armstrong. Mickey Riemann in the Squire Shop with more problems. They have 400 points for the day. Even if they go dead in the water here, they still have a pretty good shot of getting into the final. But Ron Snyder, the man who has struggled ever since about, the Madison race, I would say, in 1984 with engine problems. They've gone through virtually 10 engines since that time. Lots of smoke coming out of the Squire. It appears to be finished for 2A. This boat running like a clock right now. As I said earlier, they switched oil brands, and the engine is running great. That engine that has been on loan by the Joe Ritchie Spirit of Detroit. The U-80 with Ron Armstrong. The envy of really every boat camp with their engines. They run a beautiful system. If they had a lighter boat, they would really be competitive. They're doing very well today. As you see the American Speedy go by the Squire Shop dead in the water. There's Mickey Riemann with a front row seat and watches the second place boat go by. Jerry Hopp picking up more points. That boat just keeps running. It too has an Allison engine in it. American Speedy, who can forget when this boat was the Atlas Van Lines, the pay and pack in years past. It's the last really competitive boat still on the circuit in that conventional design. It never changed it. It was designed and built by Ron Jones. The Rampage 3. Chip Hanauer once drove this boat years ago. Brenda Jones, in modern history, one of the only women to race in that boat. And now Jerry Hopp is driving it. Here you see Ron Snyder again in the American Speedy Printing. Ron was the national points leader in the first couple of races in 1984. Back to Armstrong in the Houston Gold Cup 1985. He's in second place as he comes around that wide turn. And the checkered flag is awaiting Ron Snyder in the American Speedy Printing. What a comeback. It has been a long struggle for these people. But Mr. Snyder and American Speedy Printing is back. Winner of Heat 2A. Second place, Houston Gold Cup 85. Looking at the results, as many as 1, 2, 3, 4 boats could possibly get into the final. The Squire, Rampage, Gold Cup 85, and American Speedy Printing. Let's go down to Jim in the pits.
Well, Don, we've got a happy driver right here. Ron Snyder from Piqua, Ohio, driver of American Speedy Printing. First victory in a long time, Ron.
Well, Jim, you know, in the last few races, we haven't even finished a heat, let alone, go 5 laps. And it's 6 laps here. So, thanks to Jim Harvey down there on the Squire shop and for giving us the Bardall that he had. And
what about Joe Ritchie? I understand that you bought an engine from them, and this was the winning engine.
Oh, yeah, with great thanks to them. We had no motors after the Lake of the Ozarks, and they said, hey, we got an extra one. We don't think we'll need. Take it. So here we are in 2 heats already, and look like we're going into the final on 1 motor.
1 preliminary heat remaining in 1984, featuring the Renault and this boat, the Light All-Star. Coming up. Art Scholl is part of the 7-Eleven Freedom Air Show here at Clear Lake near Houston, Texas, and he never disappoints the crowd. Look at that. We've just gotten word the Squire shop is now back in the pits with Mickey Riemann. What happened? Jim Hendrick.
We'll try to find out right now, Don, as Mickey Riemann's coming out of the truck. Mickey, what happened out there?
When we had the problem early this morning with the broken propeller, it also broke one of our fuel tanks. It just ruptured from the big vibration, and we didn't have time to fix it, and it's surging off the corner. When I get into the corner, because we're missing this one fuel tank, it tends to quit. And I got down slow and I couldn't keep it running. It just shut itself off.
Provided you can now make the final, what will you do to correct that?
I will get that tank back in. We won't have that problem.
And I wouldn't be surprised if the Squire does make the final. Here's the final preliminary run for the day. You see the Bud, the Renault, on down the list. Time to go racing. Here they come down the main straightaway now for the final preliminary race of the day. You see the Light All-Star, the Joe Ritchie Spirit of Detroit, Renault on the inside. Here they come for Heat 2B. The Light All-Star on the right of the screen. The Tosti Asti coming up now on the left as you see them going to the wide first turn. The Joe Ritchie Spirit of Detroit with Todd Yarling against the Light All-Star and Tom DeEast. Coming around on the outside on the left of your screen, you'll be coming by as the Tosti Asti with Steve Reynolds. He's got a lot of speed, a lot of boat speed as he comes way wide of the other boats. The Light All-Star with a slight lead coming out of the turn. Joe Ritchie Spirit of Detroit slowing down. They've got power problems. There's the Miss Renault with Milner Irvin in 3rd place. The Budweiser way back. And the Tosti Asti is now moved up even with the Light All-Star. So you've got 2 turbine boats, those Lycoming turbine engines, battling it out in Heat 2B. The Budweiser coming around, Milner Irvin and the Miss Renault taking over 3rd place and now going after the 2 turbines. The Light All-Star with Tom DeEast, 1st place. Steve Reynolds, that man, and the Tosti Asti giving chase. Let's take the speeds now here on lap number 1. They're pretty good. For the Tosti, 119.8 miles per hour. The Light All-Star, 118. And the Budweiser, 112 as he moves into 3rd place. These 2 boats, very light, low center of gravity. I would be surprised if either driver is letting off at all when they go around that very large turn. And now going down the main to the back straightaway. The Texmo with Buck Thornton. The tunnel hole with those 3 Mercury outboard engines. Qualifying for the first time in 1984. The Budweiser, maybe power problems, we don't know. Or maybe he's just laying back because he knows if he can pick up maybe a 3rd place here, he'll save an engine and move into the final in very good shape with, say, around 600, 625 points. The Tosti Asti is now moving slightly ahead of the Light All-Star. Steve Reynolds, remember, he needs points. He has none for the day so far. If he wins here, he'll get 400, and he should make the final. Speed for the Tosti, he's moving up, 127.4 miles per hour. The Light All-Star, 125. The Budweiser, 116.9 miles per hour. Very good speeds on this preliminary race. And it looks like Milner Irvin and the Miss Renault is laboring a bit. Turbocharged Allison engine. The Tosti now has moved clearly into the lead ahead of the Light All-Star. Tom DeEast right there, winner of the 76 Gold Cup. Jim Kropfeld, the national champion out of Cincinnati in 3rd place. The Tosti Asti running as well now as it has all year. somewhat reminiscent of Syracuse, New York, where the boat was running like a rocket. It had trouble in the earlier heat today, but now it is running without a click. It's running beautifully. The Tosti Asti, first place with Steve Reynolds. Second place, Tom DeEast and the Light All-Star. Third place to the Bud. Fourth place going to Milner Irvin and the Miss Renault around the tight second turn and coming down the main straightaway in front of the fans here on Clear Lake in Houston, Texas. The Tosti Asti again going around that wide first turn, extending his lead. It appears he's about to lap one of the slower boats as the Tosti comes around and heads down the back chute. Jerry Verhill, the crew chief for the Tosti, done a lot of work on those engines, as of course the crew for the Light All-Star has, and the Budweiser with the Griffin engines. Uh-oh, fire on the Miss Renault around the turbo area, and that Allison engine. We'll get an update on that. In the meantime, there's the leader, Steve Reynolds again of the Tosti Asti, the U10. Still a lot of smoke coming out of the Miss Renault. Milner Irvin, the driver, of course, has fire extinguishers. He has a hand extinguisher. Looks like he's using it now, putting out the remainder of the fire. Hopefully not too much damage there. But here comes your leader, and it looks like the winner for Heat 2B, Steve Reynolds, the Tosti Asti 400 points. That should put him in the final. Here come the beer boats. Second place, the Light All-Star, 300 points for the day. They will not make the final. But the Budweiser with 225 in this heat, 625 for the day. The Bud is in. So the Tosti Asti with a heat victory and looking strong for the matchup with the Budweiser in the final. Let's go down to Jim Hendrick.
Oh, let's get out here. Here's another long. It was American Speedy Printing with Ross Sider. The last heat hadn't won in a long time, and this guy hasn't seen the victory flag in a long time either.
So that's what it's like to win one, huh? That felt great, Jim. It really did.
You nailed it right on the start pretty good.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm really pleased with that Light All-Star, too. I mean, that boat is really running strong. I mean, Tommy was right there, and I was right there. We went up the back chute together. He nodded at me, I nodded at him, and said, "See you later, Tom." He's really running fast.
And part of the 7-Eleven Freedom Air Show, the Thunderbirds over Houston, will return in just a minute. Don Poyer along with Jim Hendrick, and here's the rundown for the final heat. Great matchup, especially between the Budweiser, the Tosti Asti, and the Squire Shop. Down at the Squire Shop camp, one of the Atlas crew members helping out since their day is done. Yet another rudder change. They have been plagued with steering problems all day. Let's get a word from crew chief Jim Harvey.
Jimmy, just keep working, but what do you have to do now besides the rudder?
Well, we had trouble with the rudder that we put on the boat that was our backup. And the Atlas Van Lines were kind enough to give us their rudder, which should be pretty close to what we had on the boat. So we're changing the bearings and everything that has to be done to make it fit.
What about the gas tank? Going to put an additional one in?
No, we're going to roll the dice.
All right, let's move down to the Atlas Van Lines camp for a final word.
Chip, sorry about 1984. Looks like it's coming to an end in a bad way for you.
It is. It's been a tough year. We developed a lot of new equipment this year. The only thing that we didn't build ourselves were the propellers, and those are what let us down. So next year we build the propellers too.
Virtually every hot boat, every boat almost here in the camps have had the same problem though. What do you think about next year? Go to another company, go to Italy, what?
Make them ourselves right there in our little shop in Kent, Washington. We build everything else in the boat ourselves, and that's the only thing we don't build. So from now on, we build that too.
Well, good luck in '85. Can't wait to see you again.
Thanks.
The final heat on this hot, humid day in Houston is just moments away.
It all comes down now to the final. Will the power suffice to make it the championship for 1984? And let's find out from Jeff Neff. Jeff, actually, I got to change engines for this final.
Yes, we are. We had planned an engine change just as it worked out, Jim. Coincidentally, we'll be putting in the same engine we've run the last 2 years here, so we're not superstitious in this camp, I guess.
It's all up for grabs, the World Championship, and to find out how the other camps are doing, let's quickly go to Don Poyer and the American Speedy Printing team.
Okay, Jim, I'm with Ron Snyder, the driver of American Speedy Printing, who has had a great day. And remember, he's operating on only one engine, not 6 or 7 like some of the other camps. What about the final now?
Well, you know, we just wanted to make the first 2 heats, and we survived them with the one motor, and now we're going into the finals, so we're going to pull all the marbles out this time and just see how far we can go. And,
well, exactly. Last race of the season, you got nothing to lose.
Oh, right, last race. You got it.
Good luck to you.
Thank you.
All right. Another man who's contending is Steve Reynolds, and of course Jerry Verheul, the crew chief for Tosti Asti. Those people are getting ready right now. Jim's over there.
Hate to interrupt this one, Don, but I have to get all these pretty girls aside from the man of the hour so far. Fast heat for Tosti Asti. What about the final now?
Well, you know, Jim, everything we've done up to this point is preliminary work, and the final heat is shaping up to be a typical World Championship event. It's really going to be strong. I think everybody's running good, and it's going to be probably the fastest heat we've had all year.
Pick a lane.
I'll tell you where I want to be. I want to be at the starting line as fast as I can go when the gun goes off. I don't care what lane.
Steve Reynolds, Tosti Asti, back to you.
And thank you, Jim Hendrick, for your work in 1984. And all that remains is the World Championship Final, which is next. Back to Houston and a look at the final heat. The rundown, of course, this is the last voyage for the Budweiser, the boat they have now, looking on down the line. Let's get a final comment from some of the drivers.
Last time through for the grand old lady, James. What do you think?
Well, I hope so last time. I hope it holds together, you know. Got her on Medicare right now. She gets one more lap out of her, one more heat, we'll be in good shape.
Good luck to you.
Thank you, Don. Appreciate it.
Vicki, last time through, what do you think?
I think we're readier now than we've been all day. We've got the rudder on from Atlas. Everybody's been just great to help us, and hopefully we can do the job this time.
Go get them.
Hey, we will.
Steve, last time through in 84. What do you think?
Hey, this is all or nothing. Let's do it. Let's win the World Championship. I'm ready.
The head referee for today's racing, as he has been for all of 1984, Lee Shaniff. In the helicopter, Mike Noonan. Pit boss Jerry Zuvich, a crew chief veteran. Also Bud Martin, the driver's rep. At the judges' stand, Bob Curran, and the inspector, Paul Bauer. And here we are with the final race of 1984. The Budweiser on its last voyage in the history of that boat. It'll be put to pasture. Here's Steve Reynolds with an incredible start in the Tosti Asti. He's right where he wants to be with an open lane and a fast speed right at the gun. Coming into that wide first turn, it speeds at better than 175 miles per hour. The Tosti Asti with an incredible turn in lane number 3. The Tosti with a slim lead now, coming out of the turn and going down the back chute here in the World Championship for 1984. Second place, the Budweiser. The Tosti Asti with a sensational start by Steve Reynolds is running away from the pack as he goes down the back chute in that turbine-powered boat. Steve Reynolds, and of course the best part about this boat is its cornering ability. And he is putting on some kind of show right now. There's the Budweiser behind the rooster tail of the Tosti. Third place, American Speedy Printing with Ron Snyder. The Tosti coming out of that tight second turn, coming down the main chute, about to complete lap number 1 in this the finals for the World Championships in Houston. Steve Reynolds, who hasn't won since 1977 in San Diego aboard the Miss Circus Circus, could possibly win the World Championship if he holds on to this lead over the Budweiser. You see the Bud staying in lane number 1, the Tosti Asti in lane number 2. And if Tosti can get a little bit more of a lead, he'll be able to shut the door on the Budweiser and move into lane number 1. In third place, Snyder and the American Speedy Printing. Fourth place, back quite a ways, is the Squire Shop with Mickey Reamer. There's the lead established now by Steve Reynolds in the Tosti Asti over the Budweiser. Steve Reynolds, and oh, how much work have they put into that boat this year trying to get it dialed in. They did well at Syracuse. Then they had the frustration of a bent propeller shaft in Evansville when they lost the blade off of a prop. They had to use their backup boat in a couple of races before it was ready. The Budweiser, look at the smoke coming out of that Griffin engine. The Budweiser's in trouble. In third place, American Speedy Printing with Ron Snyder in that turbocharged Allison engine that they borrowed from the Joe Ritchie Spirit of Detroit camp. But right now, Steve Reynolds is moving along in first place. Let's get a speed. His first lap, 132 miles per hour. Second lap, 132. And again, the Budweiser on its last trip in the history of that boat is struggling. Reynolds coming around the wide turn now, establishing a very solid lead over the Budweiser as he comes around and heads for the back chute. Again, the cornering ability of that boat. That's where he runs away from the field. And Jim Kropfeld has his hands full just trying to keep the Budweiser running. It looks like he's slowing down. The Bud is slowing way down, and here comes American Speedy Printing. He'll probably pass the Budweiser and move into second place. Steve Reynolds is not looking back. He is running at sensational speeds. He is now running at a clip of 127.6 miles per hour, slowing down slightly. And now I would imagine as he talks on the two-way system with crew chief, Jerry Verheul back in the pits, he's probably saying, let's just keep this baby running. I've got a great lead. Let's see if we can maintain the lead and get the World Championship here in Houston. Steve Reynolds, the Vietnam veteran, highly decorated serviceman, a helicopter pilot in Vietnam. He's got the lead here in Houston. And moving into second place is Snyder and the American Speedy Printing moving ahead of the Budweiser. The Bud, a lot of white smoke as well as black smoke coming out of the Griffin. Big problems for the Budweiser. Mickey Riemann and the Squire Shop coming around that tight turn and coming down the main chute. A lot of turbulence, choppy water through there. As for the Tosti Asti, the crew spent much of the day cleaning the salt water out of the turbine engines in order to be healthy for today's racing and, of course, the final heat. And they are indeed healthy. The second place boat with only one engine. Ron Snyder rocking and rolling in the back seat of that conventional boat, holding on to second place. He's running at about 115 miles per hour right now in second. Jim Kropfeld is bringing the Budweiser in. Oh, an unfortunate ending to an incredible chapter of racing in Budweiser history. 23 victories for that boat, and its career is over. A new Budweiser next year with those Griffin engines. Steve Reynolds coming around the tight turn for the final time in 1984 and here in Houston. The World Championship will go to the Tosti Asti. His first victory in 1984. His first victory since 1977 as a driver. Steve Reynolds, the Tosti Asti, World Champions in 1984. Second place, and what an incredible job of driving and work by the crew of the American Speedy Printing. Ron Snyder, second place, American Speedy Printing. And so the curtain has fallen on this year's racing circuit for the Unlimiteds. The Tosti Asti, the reigning world champion. American Speedy with an impressive second. And we'll hear from the world champion driver and owner in just a moment.
Well, there you go.
World champions, what do you say?
Congratulations.
Thanks, Michael.
Oh, my God.
Get in here, Don.
Thanks,
Kenny. You did it. Oh, let me tell you, it took us 10 races to earn one, but I love this one. Didn't we, huh?
That's a brilliant start. A great start against a great driver in Jim Kropfeld.
I told Jerry Verheul on the radio, I said, okay, baby, the timing is perfect. I'm going to give them Flam start. They won't forget. He says, it's all yours.
Steve, you got to feel great. Your first win as an owner.
The happiest I ever been, I think.
You already called home, I hear.
Oh, yeah, quick.
I got to tell you, Don, I work with some of the finest, I mean, absolutely the finest guys. We have not given up, and these guys have not given up all year. They're talking 12, 15 hours a day for 7. You know, it's the same thing everybody else goes through. But my guys never lost it. I mean, they never lost it. And, you know, you persevere, and it takes hard work to do it. Here we are.
Jerry Verheul, I think we got to get a word from you. You've been working all summer on this beauty.
Well, we've had a little problem the last 3 weeks, and we finally got our finger on it. And believe it or not, it was turn a little screw about a half a turn, away it went. And that's the truth.
Everybody knows who's the world champion.
Bernie, I think we got to talk about you and the fact, of course, it's your 51st birthday today, but also that's the last time we're going to see that boat on the water. Certainly is the Miss Budweiser. She's a grand old lady, and I think something needs to be said.
Yes, she's been very good to us. We've won a lot of victories, a lot of heats with her, and Jim Kropfeld did a great job today. We tried an experiment, and we're very dumb. I'm very dumb to try experiments, but I like to do it. We're looking forward to next year running against the turbines, and you know that the grand old lady, the Miss Budweiser, is retired. Our new boat, our new engines, we'll be out there racing for it. Thank you.
So the 1984 season comes to an end with the World Championships here in Houston. It's been an incredible year for unlimited hydroplane racing and a very safe year, which is, of course, most important. Again, congratulations to the crew of the Tosti Asti, for the owner, Steve Woomer, and the driver, Steve Reynolds. It's been a long time since he's gotten a victory, and he deserves it. I hope you enjoyed our broadcast this year. We'll be back in 1985 along with the boats, and I can't wait to see you then. And until then, for Jim Hendrick, I'm Don Poyer. Thanks for joining us, and so long.